Hey everyone, it's Alex, and we're talking about the latest OTA in Marvel Snap, and admittedly, it's much smaller than we've seen in the past, which is a good thing. That means the meta is in a pretty good spot, and I would actually tend to agree. The meta seems to be much fairer and a lot more variable than it used to be in the past. We don't have as many really high outperforming decks or cards, and generally speaking, anything can win. So instead of just nerfing everything to the ground, why not bring up some of the cards that needed a buff, and that's exactly what this patch is all about. Now, this OTA here, first, starts with Luke Cage. Luke Cage went from a 2-3 to a 3-4, which is notable. We'll talk about the power in a second, but most importantly, the text change. An ongoing where the cards here could not have their power reduced, to now having cards at all not being able to have their power reduced for your side of the board. So basically, he regains his old effect of being able to prevent any sort of Scorpion or Affliction style effects from Scorpion and Spider-Woman and etc. impacting your cards. A significant nerf to, say, a High Evo Shell, which is really relying on something like a Cyclops to do a lot of damage. It's also worth noting that from a power perspective, going from a 2-3 to a 3-4 is kind of staying along the baseline. 3-5, for instance, would be above rate, and so 3-4, it keeps its power, it's still strong, but obviously the effect is very notable. This might be an indication that Second Dinner is trying to move away from these board state kind of altering cards at the 2 cost, and maybe having that additional 3rd cost is significant. So really interesting to see how this will kind of shape up for some other cards that have similar style effects, anything that impacts the entire board. But most notably, you have something like Kyera that released at a 3 cost. So Kyera and Luke Cage seem analogous from that perspective. So maybe what they saw from Kyera's impact on the game, they're like, okay, Luke Cage can do that. That's fine. Kyera protects things 1s and 6 drops from being destroyed. Luke Cage can prevent the Affliction at 3 costs. It seems fair. So we'll have to see how that impacts other cards in the future. But ultimately, a buff for Luke Cage. We go to Hulkbuster now. This is actually pretty interesting. It's worded as a nerf to Destroy. They identified that Destroy had been doing very good, and we actually had identified that as well in our recent, Decks of the Week videos. The last several weeks, I've said Destroy is amongst the top, which was funny to me because a lot of other kind of people evaluating the meta disagreed. They did not think Destroy was that good, and then suddenly Glenn's like, no, it is. So yes, vindicated. Alex's stats vindicated. But what I will say as well is that this read as them trying to nerf the Deadpool Destroy archetype. However, what I actually was thinking, I was like, hold on. Yes, you're taking a bit of power away, but I'm not convinced this is actually a nerf. Hear me out. Now, you could still do Deadpool 1, Hulkbuster 2, and then you just Carnage, Venom, and do your regular things anyway. I actually don't think that's all that bad. I actually think that moving from a 3 to a 2 might actually allow it to have a little more variability in Destroy shells. In fact, I actually don't know if this actually nerfs Destroy all that much at all, because I actually felt that Destroy was not running Hulkbuster as often anymore. So yes, it was the greedier version of Deadpool, but I didn't see it very often. So anyways, I digress. This might be an interesting change. I think it's a huge nerf to Multiple Man, in fact, because 2-3 Multiple Man on 2-3 Hulkbuster was a great play. That was a very clean play, and now that gets obstructed a little bit. Although you can technically, on turn 2, play the Multiple Man, and then on turn 3, play Iron Fist and Hulkbuster, and the Hulkbuster will actually move, okay? That's notable as well. You do lose a lot of power, but you do get an earlier proc at that movement, which might be beneficial. Regardless, a really interesting change to Hulkbuster. And I gotta tell you, I didn't see this one coming. This was not on my bingo card. Heimdall, getting additional power, going from a 6-8 to a 6-9. It's nice. What can I say? I actually remember Cozy and I talking about this specifically. Cozy and I literally called this buff months ago when we were talking about cards that need a buff. We're like, why isn't Heimdall a 6-9? Why did it have to stay at a 6-8? And they're right to identify here that originally it stayed at a Shang-Chi range. Well, now it's out of Shang-Chi range still, so that is a very good thing. Ultimately, I actually think it could go even higher. I mean, catching a Heimdall with a Shang-Chi without initiative on turn 6 would probably be hard enough as it is. So we'll have to see. They're clearly trying to help buff move a little bit. And I think that buffing Heimdall is good, especially since how iconic this character is, and just how fun the effect is as well. So I really like this change. It wouldn't surprise me if Heimdall went higher, but when you're actually including buffs to Spider-Man 29 and potentially with Hulkbuster Multiple Man, as I said prior, if the additional Iron Fist synergy is anything to be believed, we do have Spider-Man 29 coming in to move another additional buff. And what it is here is, yes, he still only destroys once a round. It's untargeted, it's completely random, but he's a 5-9 now. 5'9". I mean, that's a big body. I mean, if you think about what the change to Arrow did, Arrow's now a 5'9". That's a body you kind of have to respect. And now when you consider he's a 5'9" and he also trades a random enemy card in the other lane, that's pretty significant. At worst, he hits an Iceman, he's a 5'11", right? It's not all that bad. Is it though? I mean, the random nature of the effect, I think, keeps people away from Spider-Man 2099, but 4/6 was never a strong enough stat line. I feel like 4s have generally drifted higher than that, right? You're even seeing cards like, White Queen is completely power crept at this point. 4/6 is just not good enough at the 4 cost. We're able to kind of like, players are getting good enough, you guys are getting good enough that you're able to meet the conditions of more complex 4 drops to achieve those, 4/10 style stat lines. So at 5'9", while also trading a card, it's not bad. It's not bad. I don't think... Do you do this on turn 6 with a Ghost Spider? I don't know. The random nature of it, I think, is a hard sell. Because like to try and catch their turn 6 play, you're still probably throwing up some RNG. Now you got to guess the place they're going, but you have to guess. You have to not even guess, but you have to, just hope that it hits the right card. It's probably just an added Heimdall kind of value card. But hey, what do I know? Haven't had a chance to test it yet, but we will. Spider-Man 2099 getting a buff. This one's really interesting. I'm actually one of the believers of Ghost. I've always liked Ghost, and I actually played Ghost in a bunch of shells. Huge buff to Valkyrie by association, by the way. I think the Valkyrie was one of those cards that really wanted Ghost to be good in order for it to kind of like elevate. But what's important here is you still have the same effect, which can be strong. It elevates like control style shells, like Sarah Control, for instance. Shang-Chi works better in these circumstances to some degree. You have Shadow King that can work well under these circumstances. And of course, Valkyrie is a huge kind of beneficiary of this. But not just that, Ghost goes from a 1/2 to a 3/5, which is above rate for 3 energy. 5 power is significant. It reminds me of Viper, but I mean Viper's effect is a little more unwieldy at times, and this could have more like general applicability. It's worth noting though, like think about like what 3/5 power is. Like Polaris was often played because of that 3/5 stat line. It's something you have to kind of respect in the lane, so I really do like this change to Ghost. It was chronically underplayed, but ultimately, this could have a pretty high impact. I'm not going to like say, oh, this is the best card in the game or anything, but this effect cannot be slept on. Playing with initiative is pretty essential to Snap, and flipping it will be advantageous to a number of cards in this game. Regardless, I hope you guys enjoyed this breakdown. Subscribe if you're not subscribed already, and hit the like button if you haven't hit it yet. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in that next Marvel Snap video.